Let's take a look at what was happening on the streets tonight with this report from Katrina Perry.
The protest began early this morning and swelled to some 500 people at times. Kept behind heavy barricades, those gathered were made up of several different groups and individuals, many of whom had travelled from across the country. Earlier, several scuffles broke out as protesters tried to get access to Leinster House. The most serious occurred just before 6 p.m, when a small group accessed Kildare Street through Buswell's Hotel, and then the main body of the crowd surged forward at the barriers. Gardaí pushed back, liberally using pepper spray on the crowd and physically restraining some individuals. One man was taken away by ambulance with a suspected head injury. At that point, Garda reinforcements arrived. The Garda riot squad was on standby, along with the mounted and dog units and the Garda helicopter. At various times during the day, groups broke off to march around the city streets, at one point causing major traffic disruption on O'Connell Bridge.
Well, I disagree with everything that the government is doing. I have a young fella and he's married with 4 kids and he had to go to Poland to find work on the motorways over there.
I have 5 children and I have 3 beautiful grandsons, and I don't want to see them having to emigrate from this country. This is their country, our country. So if I have to start somewhere, and we're starting it today, and we'll go on, I'll go on as long as it takes.
We stand against austerity and the bank bailouts that the government in here have continued to sell the people out. They've been enacting the same rules, same laws of Fianna Fáil. They're not interested in sorting this problem. They're only interested in themselves and Europe.
We are not accepting this. And we want the bankers and responsible people to be brought to court. We did that in Iceland and we are still doing it.
Well, my personal motivation is basically I'm not going to let this government walk on me anymore. They've walked on me for long enough and I've decided to say no. And by the government actually knocking me out of work, they're costing the Exchequer nearly 20 grand a year by doing that for the sake of €300. But I'll stick with it. I'm not going to bow down to them.
The majority of the protesters have now left the scene, along with a significant number of the Gardaí. Katrina Perry, RTE News, Kildare Street.
David, Gardaí seem to have been anticipating these protests. You were reporting from early morning about the erection of crash barriers around Leinster House.
That's right, Eileen. TDs and senators arriving this morning were taken aback by these new crowd control barriers on the Kildare Street side. The Gardaí obviously taking no chances. In the event, the disturbances were fairly minor, even if traffic disruption was substantial enough. It wasn't a casual protest by any means. It was very well organised earlier on in the day. There were strong Republican elements there. I think it can be taken that there will be more protests like this. But the Gardaí, I think, were intent on not seeing Kildare Street blocked as it was unexpectedly during an earlier smaller protest during the last Dáil term. And throughout the day it seemed to me that the priority from the Garda point of view was to keep Kildare Street open, which they did by and large. Unfortunately, of course, other protests elsewhere in the town caused pretty substantial traffic disruption. So from that point of view, I suppose those behind the protest will have got their point across.
OK, David Davenpower at Leinster House. Thank you. The Minister for Finance, Michael